All right, we are live. I am Father James, and this is the Barely Protestant YouTube channel. Let me stop screen sharing for just a moment. There you go. So you can see me. Hi. First of all, uh, I hope that you guys have signed up for the Perseus Men's Conference that is coming up in what now? 2 months or something like that. Yeah, in a little less than 2 months. So if you have not yet, if you don't even know about anything about that, the Perseus Men's Conference is happening at St. Francis Anglican Church here in Spartanburg, South Carolina. We will be having Father Calvin Robinson. We will be having Dr. Anthony Bradley. We will be having Bishop Chad Jones. We will be having Father Matt Kennedy. We will be having yours truly. We will be having, let's see, Dr. Stephen Boyce. We will be having Trip Parker. And we're going to be having 3 days of worship, 3 days of learning what it means to be a mighty man of valor in various contexts. So, for instance, Bishop Chad Jones will be talking about martyrs of the faith, mighty men of valor in the faith, in the history of the church, who have sacrificed for the greater good, who have sacrificed for the name of Christ. I'm excited about it. By the way, I'm going to be, for the first time, physically meeting Bishop Chad this Monday. He'll be coming to my church, so I'm excited about that. But yes, if you have not yet signed up for the Perseus Men's Conference, please sign up below in the link. It's perseusconference.com, I think it is, yes. And if finances are an issue, please do not hesitate to reach out to me personally. I will do what I can to help out with the finances. We're running a tight budget, but there are some people who are willing to help out. And we do have a sort of semi-secret tier that if you are a trained acolyte, and especially if you're local here, or if you want to otherwise volunteer, there are big discounts for that assistance. I've already got a few who've signed up that way. So please do not hesitate to reach out if finances are an issue. There are people who want to help and bring more here, right? So looking forward to that. And that's my plug for the very beginning. Again, October 24th through 26th. So in a few months, and just less than 2 months. And it's going to be a wonderful time. I really am excited for it. I can't wait. So enough about that. We will move on to the main event for today, which is talking about, I almost called him Father James White. Actually, I almost called him Father James Martin, but that would be hilarious. But Dr. James White, Dr. James Martin White, Father. Anyway, so by the way, I have been blocked twice by Dr. James White. First on my original Twitter account, and then I made a new one about a year ago, and he blocked me because I was pointing out, I don't remember what, but like he was making a really bad argument on something. And he blocked me on that. And I wasn't a jerk about it or anything, but like, I was just saying, hey, this is wrong. And it's really sad that you're doing this kind of thing. And I tagged him in it, and then he blocked me after a short conversation. So anyway, Dr. White, I was very kind. I was blunt, sure, but I don't think I name called or anything like that at all. I didn't name call. I probably said that this is something I'm very concerned about with your arguments or whatever. I didn't like call you stupid or anything. I don't think you're stupid. Anyway, so please unblock me. I want to have dialogue with you and all that, but it's okay, whatever. Let's see who we've got here. I don't know. I'm Protestant. He says, let go. I don't know if you're saying let's go or if you're saying let it go, let it go. I don't know. I've had a lot of caffeine this morning, so that's probably why I'm so hyperactive. Vlad's Apologetics. Yeet, yeet. All right. Okay, so the video we have for today is a response, we're watching a video and responding to it. This is a video that I just recently came across. I don't remember how old it is. Let me see. I can't really see it on that. So it is 6 years old. Wow, this is an older one. But it is Dr. White on Justin Martyr, Saint Justin Martyr, and his dialogue with Trypho. Ooh, let me see. Pip Shepherd, excited for the upcoming conference. Signed up last month. Awesome. I think I remember your name. Yeah. I have a collection of all the names. Ha ha ha. But anyway, so I'm excited to see everyone that I know only through online and stuff. It's going to be awesome. Anyway, so this is important to me because when I was first introduced as an adult, and we're talking about when I was probably 22 or 23, I think, to the idea that Christ is actually truly bodily present in the sacrament in Holy Communion. I was pointed to things like John 6, of course, and this is by Roman Catholics. So I was pointed to things like John 6. I was pointed to also the early church, men like Saint Ignatius of Antioch and Justin Martyr and Saint Justin Martyr. I don't know why we often neglect to say saint for Justin. Anyway, Saint Irenaeus, I think, would be one. Yeah, all sorts of different people, right? And so, scripture itself, of course, and then also the early church fathers. And so the one that really struck me most was Saint Ignatius. And I had just recently discovered, and I was still a Baptist at this time, I had just recently discovered Dr. James White. He actually helped me get out of my then King James onlyism. Now I'm kind of back to kind of almost being a King James onlyist. I prefer the text behind it. And I prefer the King James for the beauty. So we only use the King James for worship here and stuff like that, but that's another story. I'm not a King James onlyist in like the fundamentalist Baptist sense, right? Like a Ruckman or a PCC or anything like that. Anyway, so I had just been sort of, introduced to James White. He had a debate with I think his name is Dr. Mormon. Oh, that's my phone. That's my Navi message thing. Anyway, I didn't silence it, so it might come up again. Pip, I was an Anglican for about 6 years before I finally got the real presence. The one that really actually was difficult for me was infant baptism. Even baptismal regeneration I was able to go into, but infant baptism was the most difficult for me. Anyway, so I was reading Saint Ignatius of Antioch and seeing these very sort of strong Eucharistic passages. And, I was like, Dr. James White could probably answer these and stuff. So I found it. I don't know if I was searching for it specifically, if I just so happened to see it. Anyway, I came across a bunch of videos that he had done on Saint Ignatius of Antioch in response to the claims of real presence, right? And I haven't gone back to look at them. I'm not even sure if they're still up on YouTube or anything, but I think he was trying to argue against a sort of Roman understanding specifically. And he, if I recall correctly, he was doing what the tactics you're going to see here. And I say tactics, I'm not trying to be sort of necessarily pejorative. I don't know if he's doing this on purpose or not, but I feel like there's like a sort of double-mindedness in it. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but we'll get to that shortly. Anyway, the arguments that he was making, like rejecting real presence, were respectfully horrible. I was not at all impressed. I just found myself saying, wow, this is really, and this is when I denied the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. I was listening to his arguments and I was just like, okay, this doesn't work well. And one of the ones I do remember very much is this whole sort of separating the word Eucharist from the Blessed Sacrament itself. Now I'm using these terms, of course, that I didn't use these terms back then. I just called it the Lord's Supper, a remembrance, whatever, but he tried to, and he will do this in this video, try to separate the word Eucharist from the context in which it just is universally there, in the sacrament itself, right? And we'll go into that in a second. Actually, I've got the Shaft book here, and we're going to go over a lot of the stuff. but I may, if it doesn't take too long, I may just try to find it online so we can screen share it too. He didn't screen share it, so maybe I can just do the same as he's doing, so that I can't get any complaints from people who are trying to defend James White or something. Anyway, so without further ado, we're just going to go normal speed because it's only about 6.5 minutes. So here we go.
Right now, specifically, I want to look, what I had said was, look, what Justin was talking about was in Malachi's prophecy about this offering around the world. Rome says, see, that's the Mass.
Now, I want to point out that the, where is it? My Bible's not right in front of me. And I want to do the King James one. I guess I could have just looked it up online. But one of the most beautiful verses in the Old Testament, to me, is from the rising of the sun to the setting of the same, my name shall be great among the Gentiles. And I'm trying to find the exact. This is not. Okay, right here. All right. I know it's in the prayer book because it's one of the opening sentences. So we got to do the King James, See, what I'm really doing is I'm padding time so the video gets longer so that I can get that ad revenue. That's how that works. It's really what I'm doing. I planned it all along that way. Epiphany, yeah. From the rising of the sun, even unto the going down of the same, my name shall be great among the Gentiles, and in every place incense shall be offered unto my name, and a pure offering for my name shall be great among the heathen, saith the Lord of hosts. Actually, I don't remember if this is like the Coverdale or the King James. It sounds like it's the King James, I think. Malachi 1:11. I love that passage. That one opened my eyes so much in my Eucharistic studies. Anyway, so that's going to be the focus. And there are actually a few passages in St. Justin Martyr's dialogue with Trypho that are going to be important that refer to this.
Now, at the same time, they will inconsistently say, well, yeah, our current understanding of the concept of the Eucharistic sacrifice evolved over time. And it didn't.
Now, I don't know why that's inconsistent. Now, everyone holds to a form of development of doctrine, right? Now, Rome takes it crazy, right? They literally, not literally, they figuratively make a mountain out of a molehill, right? And they call that development. For me, but everyone has to recognize that there's a development of doctrine. I highly doubt that James White would say that the word Trinity was used by St. Paul. I mean, I don't think he would ever say that, right? Now, there is a name that's a name that summarizes, right, our theology, but that doesn't, and so we find that in the New Testament, but the word itself, Trinity, is not there. That has to be a development, right? And it's a development of, doctrinal terms that we use. Likewise, you don't need to have the word, and again, I don't hold a transubstantiation, right? But I'm not going to demand that an explicit mention of transubstantiation must be given in St. Justin Martyr's dialogue with Trypho. I just think it's silly, right? And also, I want you to notice what he's doing. He is it, and I'm not saying this is bad, right? Because he is responding to a papist, a Roman Catholic. So I understand that, but what I really don't like. Well, let me just first say what. Okay, he is going the full Roman thing and arguing against the Roman thing, right? And I mean, I think he is a mere memorialist because I've not seen anything to convince me otherwise. I've seen a talk or two of his on the sacrament, and it seems like he just sort of thinks it encourages us, and that's about it. Maybe I'm wrong. If anyone knows that I'm wrong on that, please correct me. But from what I've seen, he's basically a mere memorialist. I mean, he's not even a 1689 guy anymore. And he was actually, I was just listening to the Dividing Line, yesterday or the day before, and he was kind of mocking 1689ers. I'm like, weren't you one like 6 years ago? Anyway, so that's neither here nor there, I guess. But like he is, I think, a mere memorialist. And when you're in the sort of megachurch world, which is kind of what it seems like the Apologia Church is, I mean, it looks like your typical megachurch. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong, but just from what I've seen, that's the way you do it. It's just, it's just a symbol. That's all it is. It's just a remembrance. And he's going to kind of push on that. I don't think he ever explicitly says it's only a remembrance, but he's constantly pushing the it's a remembrance thing, which is such a silly argument. And we'll get into that in a second. All right, here we go. Continuing on.
Exist in Justin's day, but we'll still look back to that and say this somehow fits together. It doesn't. I tried to sort of bring some of that stuff up.
So I'm not a proponent of transubstantiation, but all he is pointing to right now is sacrifice, right? Now, is it logically possible that Saint Justin Martyr is talking about a sacrifice of a mere memorial? Not really. Maybe not really. It really hurts to try to twist your brain into that, but continuing on.
But it comes out just by reading Justin. And so in chapter 117, this comes out with the most clarity. There's 3 places in Justin's dialogue with Trypho this comes out, but it's very, very clear here. His argument is this. Trypho is a Jew. So he is arguing with Trypho, the Jew, and he's saying, your religion cannot give a fulfillment of what is in Malachi chapter 1, verse 11, where you have this prophet.
All right, so he's talking about chapter, 117, in his dialogue with Trypho, St. Justin Martyr's dialogue with Trypho. And so in it, this is what I'm going to read it right here. Accordingly, God, anticipating all the sacrifices which we offer through this name, through Jesus, which Jesus the Christ enjoined us to offer in the Eucharist of the bread and the cup. All right. And which are presented by Christians in all places throughout the world, bears witness that they are well-pleasing to him. All right. So what he says is in the Eucharist of the bread and the cup. Now, to me, that's clear, but let's see what he argues.
Prophecy. And it's not quoted here. So, for from the rising of the sun even to its setting, my name will be great among the nations, and in every place incense is going to be offered to my name, and a grain offering that is pure. For my name will be great among the nations, says Yahweh of hosts. But you are profaning it, verse 12, in that you say the table of the Lord is defiled, and as for its food is to be despised. So, Justin's argument is that this has never been and cannot be fulfilled amongst the Jewish people. It never has been, and it cannot now be fulfilled amongst Jewish people. So what is this? All
right. So his argument is that, look, this can't be fulfilled among the Jewish people. And I agree. That's what he's saying. Now, I found it's New Advent. So, take it or leave it. I might show it on the screen when we're going over it. I think it's a different translation on New Advent. I'm not positive about that. But getting some fish and chips now, lads. Awesome. All right. So his argument is that, well, look, so he's arguing against the Jews, of course, Trypho. I should put that context in prior. So the dialogue with Trypho is a dialogue between a Christian and a Jew. It's not probably a real dialogue. It's sort of a made up one. This is sort of typical, especially in philosophical discourse. So the idea is like it's a Jew and a Christian going back and forth and debating their different religions, right? All right, continuing on.
Making great of his name, or this incense, or this grain offering. What is this all about? Justin's argument.
All right. So let's go back to that passage. From the rising of the sun, even unto the going down of the same, my name, obviously God, shall be great among the Gentiles. And in every place incense shall be offered unto my name, and a pure offering, for my name shall be great among the heathen, saith the Lord of hosts. All right. So it's also interesting that incense is said there, but like that's never, Baptists don't like incense. Unfortunately, a lot of the parishioners today don't like incense, but hey, Malachi 1:11 is there. Let's see where I'm looking for something really quickly. Sorry for the delay. Just wanted to check something. Let's not do the New Living Translation. Let's do something a little bit better. I just want to compare something. I have a question for myself to answer. All right. Just wanted to check that. Okay, here we go. Going back. So here it is, right? There is this sacrifice that is happening, this pure offering that is happening. Now, typically what has been connected to this is the Eucharist. And it is, I will say, abundantly clear that St. Justin Martyr believes that the Eucharist, and by Eucharist, we are talking about Holy Communion, the bread and the wine consecrated, joined to the body and blood of Christ, right, is that sacrifice. And if you don't believe me, we'll get to it in a second, right? And in fact, I might prep a section of that. Where is that? It's going to be in chapter 41 of Dialogue with Trypho, if you want to look beforehand before we get to that. I think it's 41, yeah. There was another one, but it wasn't nearly as strong. Actually, I don't think it even mentions the Eucharist, but this one does. All right.
Argument is that is fulfilled in the thanksgiving. He kept saying Eucharist, and what he's doing is he's taking a later development, reading it back into the thanksgiving prayers of the Christian people around the world.
All right. So the argument being made right here is that, let's look back again at, did I turn it back? Yeah, I did. Let's look at, let me go ahead and do this then. Let's look at 117. I will go ahead and have two separate spots for these. All right. And we will change the, we'll stop that screen and we will present another screen. Doing some sharing of screens today. Which one am I looking for? Is it this one? Yes, it's this one. All right. Again, it's New Advent. It's, take it or leave it. If you have any issues, I don't think there's going to be any major issues to be concerned about here. I think New Advent is a Roman. Yeah. It's what every Catholic should know. Well, yes, every Catholic should know it. Yes, and Romanists too. All right. Malachi's prophecy concerning the sacrifices of the Christians, it cannot be taken as referring to the prayers of the Jews of the dispersion. All right. And I will not accept your sacrifices at your hands. For from the rising of the sun to the setting, to its setting, the same my name is. Okay, so where does he put that part? Now that prayers and giving of thanks, when offered by worthy men, are only perfect and well pleasing. Where is it? Oh my goodness! Oh, here at the very beginning. Accordingly, God, anticipating all the sacrifices which we offer through His name, and which Jesus the Christ enjoined us to offer, i.e., in the Eucharist of the bread and the cup. So what he's going to point to is in the Eucharist of the bread and the cup. Now, Dr. White is, from what I'm gathering from this, he's trying to separate that Eucharist from the bread and the cup, where he's claiming that Justin Martyr is not saying, look, the bread and the wine themselves consecrated are part of that sacrifice. He's saying, no, only the thanksgivings are the sacrifice. All right. So let's continue on with what he is saying. Oh, wait, nope, we got to get back to it. That's going to be very fun, having to go back and forth with this. Let's see, Justin Martyr. All right, continue on here.
Has nothing to do with the whole concept of transubstantiation, Eucharist as giving prayers, later development, reading it back into the thanksgiving prayers of the Christian people around the world. Has nothing to do with the whole concept of transubstantiation, Eucharist as a propitiatory sacrifice, the necessity of a priesthood, and all the rest of that stuff.
Now look how much he adds to it. Now again, he's responding to a Romanist. Okay, sure, but I wish he would give a positive sort of, like, is he saying that? Well, not just a positive, but like also, is he saying that there is no understanding of sacrifice in connection to the Blessed Sacrament itself? Now, he wouldn't call it the Blessed Sacrament, of course, but there's no understanding of sacrifice in connection. What is his understanding of Malachi? Is it merely just, well, it's just praise and thanksgiving? It seems to be what he's saying. And then what is the Eucharist itself? Seems to be only a memorial for him, only a mere memorial for him.
None of that is present in what Justin is saying. And this comes out in his own words. Section 117, Dialogue with Trypho. Justin, accordingly, God, anticipating all the sacrifices which we offer through this name, and which Jesus Christ enjoined on us to offer, that is, in the Eucharist, that is the thanksgiving of the bread and the cup, and which are presented by Christians in all places, which are presented throughout the world, bears witness that they are well-pleasing to him. But he utterly rejects those presented by you, and by those priests of yours, saying, and I will not accept your sacrifices at your hands, for from the rising of the sun to its setting, my name is glorified among the Gentiles, he says, but you profane it. That is verses 10 through 12. So it's all
right. So let's go ahead and look at another passage, which is chapter 41 in St. Justin Martyr's Dialogue with Trypho. Is it this one? Yep, it's this one. All right. And again, I prefer the Schaff one, not out of any sort of academic reason. I like Schaff. I don't know if this is the same one. I'm not going to try to read and compare right now in the midst to try to figure it out. I have something in my pocket. I'm trying to get it out. Let's go ahead and look at 41. Justin, and the offering of fine flour, sirs, which was prescribed to be presented on behalf of those purified from leprosy, was a type of the bread of the Eucharist. Again, this is connecting bread. He's calling the Eucharist, like he's calling the bread and the wine the Eucharist. It's not just, the Thanksgiving thing that's kind of connected to it. No. When he is talking about the Eucharist, especially when it's in connection with bread, he's not merely talking about Thanksgivings. He is talking about the Eucharist itself, or the bread and the wine themselves, consecrated, the body and blood of Christ, being the Eucharist, right? The celebration of which our Lord Jesus prescribed, in remembrance of the suffering which he endured on behalf of those who are purified in soul from all iniquity. Seems like it's the same translation. I was just curious. In order that we may at the same time thank God for having created the world with all things therein, for the sake of man, and for delivering us from the evil in which we were, and for utterly overthrowing principalities and powers by him who suffered according to his will. Hence, God speaks by the mouth of Malachi, one of the 12 prophets, as I said before, about the sacrifices at that time presented by you. I have no pleasure in you, says the Lord, and I will not accept your sacrifices at your hands. For from the rising of the sun unto the going down of the same, my name has been glorified among the Gentiles, and in every place incense is offered to my name, and a pure offering, for my name is great among the Gentiles, says the Lord, but you profane it. Malachi 1, 10 through 12. So he then speaks of those Gentiles, namely us, namely us, who in every place, here it goes, who in every place offer sacrifices to him, i.e., the bread of the Eucharist, and also the cup of the Eucharist, affirming both that we glorify his name and that you profane it. All right. This is abundantly clear. Let me go over it again. So he then speaks to those Gentiles, namely us. Remember, From the rising of the sun to the going down of the same, my name shall be great among the Gentiles. He's saying, he's speaking of us. We're Gentiles, right? Oh, someone's trying to call me. Don't call me. Billy, what are you doing? All right. So he then speaks of those Gentiles, namely us, who in every place offer sacrifices to him. What are those sacrifices? The bread of the Eucharist and also the cup of the Eucharist. What are the sacrifices? The bread of the Eucharist and also the cup of the Eucharist. You see, for his argument to work, he'd have to have it the other way around for even to slightly work here, right? It'd be like the Eucharist of the bread and the wine, the bread and the cup. It's exact opposite. The bread of the Eucharist and also the cup of the Eucharist. All right. And let me just double check and make sure here. I don't have the Greek in front of me. Oh, was it Greek or Latin? I think he does Greek. Yeah, for Justin Martyr. I don't have that in front of me, so we're relying upon the translations. If Dr. White wants to point to the Greek, something else, then we could do that. Yeah, the bread of the Eucharist and also the cup of the Eucharist. Let's see if there are any footnotes as well. I love Chef. Chef is awesome. Let's see. Nothing I see here that would mention otherwise. All right. So, chapter 41, one more time. So he then speaks of those Gentiles, namely us, who in every place offer sacrifices to him, for example, the bread of the Eucharist and also the cup of the Eucharist, affirming both that we glorify his name and that you profane it. For St. Justin Martyr, Malachi 1, 10 through 12 is explicitly, not exclusively, but explicitly about the sacrifice of Holy Communion. Now, I agree. This does not go into a claim that there is a distinct propitiatory sacrifice, right? That in celebrating the Mass, we are doing a new sacrifice, offering Christ afresh. No, we reject that. We do not believe that. All right. What's important to note, though, is that it is still a sacrifice, right? The sacrifice of the bread of the Eucharist and also the cup of the Eucharist. These are sacrifices. Even if you want to claim, well, it's only a sacrifice of praise and thanksgiving, I don't think that works well because there is such a strong emphasis upon the body and blood of Christ in the patristics. So I don't think that interpretation works well at all. But all right, here we go. Oh, I got a few more things here. Let's see. Pip Shepherd, White only mentioning the more egregious beliefs about the sacrament does not give room for other views, as if there are no others except memorialism. That's true. Like that's one of the big points I have here. Knox the Sinner. I remember hearing James White say this stuff years ago and blindly believed it. Had no clue Justin Martyr had said these other things at the time. Agreed. Yeah. All right, let's get back to stopping this one and getting there. That's kind of annoying, but whatever. Okay, Justin Martyr and the Eucharist. Let's continue on.
Section. Yet even now, in your love of contention, you assert that God does not accept the sacrifices of those who dwelt then in Jerusalem and were called Israelites, but says that he is pleased with the prayers of the individuals of that nation when dispersed and calls their prayers sacrifice. So in other words, Trypho's arguing.
So it's not enough to just say it's the prayers. And again, pointing back to chapter 41, what we just read, go back if you forgot, right? He's not pointing to the prayers. He's pointing to the bread and the wine being sacrificed. The bread and the wine of Thanksgiving, if you want to get rid of the word Eucharist because you think there's too much baggage associated, the bread and wine of Thanksgiving is part of the sacrificial system, or is part of the sacrifice. We'll say that. He won't like the term sacrificial system. So there is an understanding in which the bread and wine themselves, not merely the Thanksgiving associated with it, but the bread and the wine themselves are sacrifices. All right, or are a sacrifice.
That there is fulfillment in the dispersion of the Jews in their prayers. Now, Justin then says that prayers and giving of thanks when offered by worthy men are the only perfect and well-pleasing sacrifice to God, I also admit. So Trypho has argued, well, the fulfillment is found in the dispersed Jews and their prayers. And Justin says, well, you know what? The prayers of just men? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Not a Eucharistic sacrifice, not transubstantiation, nothing like you have in the modern Roman Mass.
Except we just read in 41 that he explicitly states that not the Eucharist, if you're trying to separate that from the bread and the wine, he calls the bread and the wine sacrifice.
But in the thanksgiving prayers of the Christian people, for such alone Christians, such alone have Christians undertaken to offer, and in the remembrance, anamnesis.
This is the thing that always like frustrates me, as if like no one ever noticed or even did theology concerning the reality of the word anamnesis, 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 however you want to pronounce it, right? In the words of institution, as if it's like no one, until Pastor Jim Bob found out, oh, it's just a fake thing. Remembrance means fake presence. Like, how does do this in remembrance of me mean I'm just kidding? I really don't mean it's my body and my blood. Guys, chill. I was just doing a joke. Like, how does that work? As a Baptist, I kept espousing this. And then I don't remember if someone challenged me, if I challenged myself to be like, what am I actually saying when I do this? When I say it's a remembrance, it's just a remembrance. Like, what am I saying? Am I like, how does that negate the real presence of Christ? It's a remembrance. We all recognize that. We all admit that. We all confess that. That doesn't mean it's nothing else. It's a remembrance, so it's not actually bread and it's not actually wine because it's only a remembrance. Like, it is X, therefore it is not Y. You'll have to do more than just assert that. I'm sorry.
Remembrance, not repetition, not representation.
Oh, so you don't repeat Holy Communion? You don't repeat the Lord's Supper? Is that what you're saying? It's only one time? Is that what you're saying?
Anamnesis, remember, we have an anamnesis of a sin bearer, whereas under the repetitive sacrifices, you have a reminder of sin, which is what you have in the Mass.
Wait a minute. If anything, it is the opposite, because all who confess that Christ is truly present in the Eucharist, it is a remembrance of Christ himself, not of our sin. We're being cleansed from sin in it. We're actually being cleansed from, we actually believe it cleanses us from sin. Your thing is it's just a fake pretend fun remembrance and nothing more. Like this is so backwards. We are the ones who are saying it points us literally to Christ. You are the one who is literally denying that it is pointing us to Christ in anything more than a mere memorialist way. This is where it's hard for me to see how he is anything other than a mere memorialist. I fail to see how it's anything other than mere memorialism. When you are like, the real presence position is the one that points to Christ. The fake presence one does not point to Christ as anything other than a mere picture, a mere memorial. So.
For such alone, Christians have undertaken to offer, and in the
I saw something that was really interesting here. Isn't the Greek word he's appealing to used in a sacrificial sense in the LXX anyway? I don't know if it's explicitly used in the LXX that way, but I have heard anamnesis, that's the pronunciation I always had. Anamnesis, anamnesis, either way, that there is a sacrificial element to it. It's actually connected to Passover. There was this concept of again, I'm not sure if it's explicitly tied through the LXX, the Septuagint, but there is this understanding that in anamnesis, there's a joining together. It's not a just, oh, I forgot. Thank you, God, for saving me through the Passover, or now through Jesus. Like, thank you for reminding me I had forgotten. It's far stronger than that. It's actually a rejoining. Again, for the people of the Old Testament, the people of God in the Old Testament, they were being anamnesis to the Passover, right? That was what was happening in the Passover meal, to that first Passover. For us, we have a similar sort of understanding that we are being connected to the one sacrifice. That's why it's always only one sacrifice. In Holy Communion, we are being connected to the one sacrifice, right? And that is mystically happening. We don't try to sort of explain it all and everything. That is mystically happening through the signs that Christ gave us, which are the bread and the wine. So through the consecrated elements, the bread and the wine, we are joined to the sacrifice, the body, blood, soul, divinity of Christ, the sacrifice, the one sacrifice, the only sacrifice that forgives us our sins. We are being joined to that in anamnesis, which is a stronger thing than just a mere, oh, I forgot, thank you for reminding me, Jesus. That's not what it means. Let's look at one more. Cleansing from sin is why I take the sacrament as often as it is offered at my parish. Christ is there offering himself to me, a gift of himself and the gifts which he brings. Amen. All right.
Membranes affected by their solid and liquid food, the bread and the cup, whereby the...
And what's so funny is, like, he keeps trying to separate Eucharist from I'm going to avoid I should avoid the word Eucharist for this, the bread and the wine. And then he's literally reading about how, like, St. Justin Martyr is connecting the bread and the wine to all this, right? It's just hilarious. And he's trying to, like, deny the connection, or imply a denied connection. It's
suffering of the Son of God, which he endured, is what? Brought to mind. Not
brought to mind. It's all fake then. It's not a sacrifice. It's not connecting us to the one sacrifice of Christ. It's just reminding us, that's all, because it said brought to mind. Therefore, reject everything else I've said. Remembrance means forget everything else that someone says because I use the word remembrance. That's what it apparently means in Baptist land. I'm sorry, I'm getting animated. I had a lot of coffee, or not coffee, but energy. I had some energy drinks, the healthier ones, the like the Celsius stuff. Those, yeah. Anyway,
represented, no transubstantiation,
no transubstantiation. Nope. Well, that's it. Then we don't. It's all a fake presence. It's all make believe, happy, clappy, pretend.
There, whose name the high priests of your nation and your teachers have caused to be profaned and blasphemed over all the earth. There's Justin's own explanation of his own understanding of Malachi 1, and it has no place in the modern Roman system.
It's not inconsistent with the modern Roman system. Like, I don't hold to the modern Roman system. It's not inconsistent with it, though. It's definitely inconsistent with your position. If you're a mere memorialist, if you believe that there's no actual connection through the sign of the believer to the body, blood, soul, divinity of Christ, if that's your position, then that has no connection whatsoever with St. Justin Martyr. Not even slightly. Like that just doesn't work at all.
So I had said to, I think it was Joe was the caller. He actually tweeted me this morning. I said to Joe, I said that he was talking about Thanksgiving. He wasn't talking about some type of Eucharistic sacrifices involving transubstantiation, propitiatory sacrifices that do not perfect those that are made, for whom it is made, etc., etc., etc. There's the words of Justin himself. Wanted you to see it. There's straight out of the Ante-Nicene Fathers, Volume 1, Section 117, Dialogue with Trypho. You got to go to the documentation. You got to go to the doc.
All right, that's it. All right. Let me go ahead and remove that. Again, let's go back to I don't want that. Let's stop that screen and let's present another screen. There we go. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'll get to, because I'm Batman 5702, I'll get to you in a second. But let me just go back to this. Let's look again. So this is in right after talking about Malachi 1:10-12, literally the same passage that he was going through in chapter 117. This is chapter 41. So this is before, right? So this is given the context, right? He's talking about 117, given the context of chapter 41. And these are called chapters, but we're talking about like little more than one or two paragraphs for each one. So it's not like it's, war and peace necessarily, So he then speaks of those Gentiles, namely us, who in every place offer sacrifices to him, i.e., the bread of the Eucharist and also the cup of the Eucharist, affirming both that we glorify his name and that you profane it. Again, he is pointing to sacrifices to Christ or to God. I mean, Christ is God, but sacrifices to God. And the example he gives is the bread and the cup of the Eucharist. So you need to read that in light, or you need to read that and then understand 117 in light of that. He is not denying in 117 what he wrote in 41. You need more than just assertions for that. You need to actually defend that position because he is rather clear here, incredibly clear here, that the bread and the cup are sacrifices. I don't know how else to read that. All right. All right. So let's get back to this right here. Because I'm Batman 5702. I've seen actually a few new people. Hi, hope you all are doing well. Again, Perseus Men's Conference, October 24th to 26th. See the very beginning of the video for the full thing on it, and see the website below. Link below. New here. Hi, glad to have you here. I thought I've heard White say he was spiritual presence guy like Calvin. All right. The quote spiritual presence thing is so widely netted to even Zwingli pointed to some sort of, well, you're spiritually enlightened and there's some sort of like it's so ill-defined. Now it would be one thing if Dr. James White were a confessional Reformed Christian, even if we're including Reformed Baptist as an actual part of the Reformed tradition, which that itself is contentious. But let's say we're doing that, right? He's not a Reformed Baptist. He isn't. And the reason he's not a Reformed Baptist is that there is a definition of Reformed Baptist, 1689 London Baptist Confession. Not I get to believe whatever I want to believe and it doesn't matter. So he is confessionally free. His confession stops at the end of his website for his church. That is what it is. It's his local congregation's idea of this is what we believe, and we don't really care if we're connected to anyone else as long as we get to believe what we want to believe in our own little island. That's kind of what it is, right? So if he is ever saying, "Oh, I believe in a spiritual presence," I'd like to know what that means, because he denies any presence of Christ in every sort of talk I've ever seen. Like I see no reason to believe that he holds to any sort of substantial and like here's the thing. John Calvin holds to Christ being substantially present in the bread and the wine, body, blood, soul, divinity. For the faithful, those who are wicked do not receive the body, blood, soul, divinity of Christ in receiving the sacrament, but he still connects the sign to the body, blood, soul, divinity of Christ. That is strongly in Calvin. I, as an Anglo-Catholic high church guy, am far closer to Calvin's Eucharistic theology than James White. It's not even a question. Like, given what he has told me, unless, okay, maybe it's a question if I'm just completely misunderstanding his theology, right? And the last, like, I'm looking at these sort of claims in his Eucharistic theology, in his debates, in his little diatribes against Roman Catholics, his diatribes against Luther, being like, well, Luther, had still this sacramental system, sacralism, and how dare he, actually believe that God's promises are tied to physical matter. Although I guess you can say that with Christ, but anyway, that whole thing, right? Like, he is so anti the sacraments. He's like a John MacArthur. It's really sad. I don't, and I said I get animated when it comes to the sacrament. Like, it is so frustrating hearing, just how poorly the eisegesis is done. Eisegesis. And I'm going off on a tangent now, but like that, this gets me animated. It is so clear. And part of it is like, I tried to fight against it, and it took me just a few months to be like, okay, the Lord's Supper is the body and blood of Christ, body, blood, soul, divinity of Christ, and I have to believe it. And I didn't like it. Now it's a great comfort to me, right? I didn't like it. But so it frustrates me that a man for literally decades, seemingly his entire life, has this rejection of any substantial understanding of Christ being truly present. When someone says a spiritual presence, so often what they mean is some sort of esoteric, like, oh, it makes me really think of Jesus even more, and it's awesome, and it's like a spiritual high. Like, that tends to be what's meant, right? So I that's not what Calvin means, right? That's not what anyone means. Everyone believes that Christ is spiritually present. Spiritually does not mean non-bodily, by the way. That's a Gnostic position. That's an anti 1 Corinthians 15 position, because 1 Corinthians talks about our bodies being spiritual. They don't mean, the resurrected bodies. Doesn't mean that the resurrected bodies are non-physical, because then Christ's resurrected body is non-physical, except he's eating food as a non-physical thing. Is it just floating around in his spiritual non-bodily stomach, and just sort of like Casper kind of thing? Yeah. Anyway, continuing on. Let's see. Oh, wait, maybe I missed a few. Why I take the sacrament white quote mining. Oh yeah, totally. So okay. So then after that, Pip Shepherd, because I'm Batman 50. Oh, if White is a consistent Reformed Baptist, he would hold the spiritual presence. Yeah. Archbishop of Constantinople. Oh, the Archbishop of Constantinople. Is this Bartholomew II? Oh, could you get a little bit more traditional and conservative, please? Stop being a universalist. All right, anyway, his sermons on the Lord's Supper from years ago seem to imply he believes spiritual presence in the Calvinistic way, but who knows? It's so floaty. Whenever I listen to, like, anyone who tries to, like a John Piper or whoever, right? It's always so floaty. And I've listened to James White. This is a few years ago, to be fair, maybe 6-7 years ago or whatever. But like, I've listened to James White talk about his understanding of the Lord's Supper, and it was like, I think it was at Apologia Church, so it might have been sooner, like more recent. But he first started off like the talk where just let you know, we reject transubstantiation, like this complete hatred for any sort of understanding that seemingly of Christ being substantially present. And then it was just like, oh, it encourages us, and maybe I'm being unfair, but like, I listened to it, and I was like, this is not what Calvin held to. It's not what Calvin held to. Spiritual presence does not discount real presence. Amen. Yep. I have to go find his teaching series on how to on it now to check. Thanks. Yeah. If I am wrong, I'll say, sure, I'll eat it. Like, but he is so constantly doing this whole hatred of any substantial presence of Christ in the Eucharist. It is hard for me to see how he can square that with Calvin's, because Calvin believes that Christ is substantially present, like without question. All right. Any other questions or things? I think I'm done. I already did the video and stuff. There we go. So again, one more shout out about the Perseus Men's Conference. Go ahead and check down the links below. Also, I have my procedures starting up again, and it's going to be starting up next week, Thursday. So keep me in prayer. This is going to be, I don't want to give the details. This is for my cancer stuff. It's going to be very painful. So please keep me in prayer for that. And also, if you don't mind, only if you are able, there are still a lot of medical bills with all this sort of stuff. And my church, we're a struggling church. I just got on here. I was just made the rector, actually officially installed about a little less than 2 months ago now. And so we're trying to grow. We're growing, but they can't afford an appropriate paycheck for a rector and stuff. And I'm not complaining, but like, so this sort of stuff, like with the YouTube channel and everything, helps me, especially when I'm dealing with my cancer and all that sort of stuff. So if you are able to help out, that'd be wonderful. I've got there are a lot of medical bills that go along with this, even with insurance, and I've got a limited insurance, Obamacare stuff kind of thing. So if you could help out, that'd be wonderful. Thank you all very much. Hope you all have a good day. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. Again, Perseus Men's Conference, check it out below. And let me see if we have. Let me just go and look at these now. Vlad's apologetics. We should be fairly open and say that his hatred towards reality of the Eucharist is simply demonic after all these years and corrections. Yeah. St. Patrick's, Brevard, North Carolina. We're praying for you. Thank you so much, Pip. I'm in South Carolina, so hey, I don't know where Brevard is, but you should come and visit us sometime. It is not a mere disagreement, but a very obvious devotion towards disgust and hatred at the idea. Yeah, that seems to be what it is. It is just bewildering to me. I was there, but I had to be honest with myself and realize what I was doing. So maybe when you get to a certain age, it's just, it's a problem, like where it's you're so stuck in your ways kind of thing. But yeah. Pip, just north of you, south of Asheville. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Asheville is what, an hour away from me. So yeah, we should try to have, email me or something. We should try to meet up sometime. All right. Hope you all have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. God bless you. Peace.